is about 48% of that budget of $185 million. The capital improvement program budget is lower than in prior years, mostly because of the water and sewer reductions in the current year. But the general fund, as mentioned, was added for general capital improvement program of $21.9 million or $22 million. Total budget overall for CIP was $73.9 million. Water CIP and sewer CIP totaled out $40 million, and then stormwater was in at 11. So significant additions in terms of general capital projects. Moving on into the proposed, the upcoming budget cycle, as Ms. Wilson mentioned, in terms of items where we look for in terms of direction and guidance and with regards to development of the budget. City manager, of course, develops guidelines for departments in terms of submitting the budget and the overall direction of the budget in order to accommodate that support city council's strategic outcomes as previously described. One of the top areas of concern, of course, both with the city managers, other executive city staff, as well as city council, is ability to ensure that we have a qualified and capable workforce, both retaining and attracting that workforce in order to provide the services that we provide to our community every day. But with that, too, is also making sure that those employees have the tools and resources that they need in order to perform their task and their work. Fulfilling the city's financial obligations is always a top priority. We want to make sure we pay off our debt and meet our financial commitments. Addressing critical city infrastructure by completing the priority projects that will be a big topic of today's conversation going forward, as well as meeting some of these ongoing needs of capital infrastructure things that we address or seek to address every year: roads, sidewalks, water and sewer, other city facilities. And of course, also addressing and improving city assets. Affordable housing and homeless services is obviously a top priority of the city council. Meeting food insecurities, addressing blight, addressing commercial and residential redevelopment, and then of course beautification and gateways. Budget drivers, that would be those items that drive how we are able to develop this budget and where we're able to put our path forward. First off is revenues. We are seeing some signs of improvement. Some areas of revenues were able to be sustained or were not as impacted during COVID or the pandemic. Some things we maybe saw some stunted growth, if you will, but maybe were able to withstand staying at least flat and not necessarily significant reductions. We are seeing some improvements in those revenues, mostly with regards to like hospitality tax and of course accommodations tax. As we're all aware, we're seeing still some steady growth in those areas. General fund is a little harder to predict at this point, but when we come back to you in March, we will be talking a little bit further about the revenue projections going forward. Expenditure-wise, what's driving on the expenditure is, of course, those added and new programs or expanded programs that are in the general fund or even in water and sewer. One of the areas that seems to be a continued concern and constraint with our departments is staffing and vacancies, being able to both hire and retain employees. Operating costs that we're seeing impacted by inflation. Some areas there's still a lot of fluctuation that we're seeing with regards to different costs, both in terms of inflationary costs, but also too with regards to some supply chain issues, some things that are improving, some things that are still constrained. With regards to health insurance, we have included in the budget an increase of about $500 per employee to about $11,000 per year. That basically is a composite rate that we use to fund and cover our entire healthcare cost. State retirement rates have increased about 1% each year on the PORS, which is the non-sworn retirement rates, which is 17.5% interest. 17.56%. PORS, which is for sworn police and fire, is 20.24%. And of course, these rates are subject to change based on what the legislature decides to do.
Is that 1% covered by the state? Is that the 1% they're covering?
They have covered it, but that's still subject to the legislature. They've covered it in prior years, but we don't know how consistently they will cover it.
We've been told that we're gonna start covering that. It's
Right.
the word we keep getting back. It's gonna come at us. As we go through the budget process and we start talking about staffing and vacancies and impact on operations, I think we gotta start thinking a little bit strategically as well on if we're not gonna be able to replace people and how technology or third parties are gonna impact us and play and be more of resources for us in the future. Because I think we're seeing challenges across the U.S., especially in certain departments. People just can't get people to apply, no matter what kind of dollars they put around it. So we need to start thinking, what's out there, in training, technology, creative ways to help fill those gaps. So as we're going down through the budget, let's also be looking at what other people are doing and how we maybe can adapt what they're doing to help fill those gaps, because I think we're going to end up with gaps, unfortunately.
Right. Especially in certain markets, depending upon the type of position that you're hiring for. As far as the budget schedule, of course, today we're going to be doing a review of some of the priority projects, discussing budget development. We're also looking in March at your next budget workshop. We'll be talking revenues. And then in April, we'll continue with budget review. And by May, we'll be doing city manager's proposed budget. Dates to point out there is May 18th if we stay on city council's regular work session or a regular schedule. The proposed budget would be, budget public hearing would be the first meeting in June, which means the date that the budget has to be advertised is by May the 18th. So at that point, the budget has to be in balance. So we're targeting May 18th for that publication, or sending that for publication. Departments are putting together a little different approach to their budgets this year. We're utilizing some different tools and different technology in terms of developing the budget. So hopefully we will hear not too many pain points from our departments in terms of changes in how they're developing their budget and how they're presenting their information. Any questions about the budget overview in terms of budget development and budget schedule? Then next we'll go into priority projects. Just a sort of high-level review, updating about this is not intended to be a complete comprehensive list, but is certainly a pretty thorough list of priority projects that are underway or have been allocated and approved by City Council to move forward. There are about $200 million worth of capital projects that are in play. I'd also like to point out that almost $100 million of those funds are grant dollars. Of course, we'll be talking about various projects in priority in executive session. You have included in your materials a list of those projects and sort of where they stand, both with regards to projected cost along with funding allocations, and then their current high-level review of their status. As Ms. Wilson mentioned, we'll cover.
So on that very comprehensive list, the projects that you see pending beside are the ones that we need some collective discussion, direction given, and we'll talk about those today. The others, we're just sort of trucking along with all those in progress and or those being planned.
That's a bunch of them.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's a good thing, but gotta manage it right.
I noticed they left off the pickleball courts.
Did we?
Are you gonna start playing, or are you just
You're right.
I'm gonna get in training in January, I'm gonna hit the course.
I have something for you if you're sure, if you mean that, because they make, I mean, pickleball is so big, they make these, you can order the colors or the city on the paddles and your initials on there, all
I've
kinds of
got a
stuff.
gold-plated.
That's right.
Gold-plated one.
You do? Okay.
You got the golden paddle from Southeastern.
Oh,
Southeast Florida.
okay. Well, you're already there.
That's when we discovered all this time Howard had
didn't
never
play.
played one game.
He's advocating on behalf of his constituents.
I think he was just telling people he played.
I knew a booming thing when I heard about it.
Clearly. All right.
So we're gonna go through, we're gonna spend some time on each of these.
The ones that
Pending.
say pending,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
ma'am.
What about the line item, the major line item of like beautification and cleanup program of 800? Does
We're-
that bleed into this as well?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So that was something, thank you for that, Mr. Brennan, that's more public, and doesn't really need any major decision points that have to be captured under legal advice. So we were gonna talk about that one now, and make sure that we're moving in the direction in which you all wish us to go.
I mean, there's some stuff in here that's probably coming out.
Of the beautification.
Wait, what's coming out?
I think that piques some interest.
I guess.
We ought to try to pull both of
Beautification coming out.
them. No,
Oh, I was like,
Okay.
no, there's a item or two in there that may come out, that we have in progress that may not be needed.
I mean, funding from another source outside of,
Funding from another source or not needed at all.
being sleuth.
Well, we don't know what you're referring to, but I know you'll let us know. So
Can't
do
wait
you
for
want
it
us
now.
to?
Can't wait.
Can't
Do you
wait.
want us to move forward with the beautification item, Mayor?
Yes, very excited.
Okay, great.
All right.
I
And
think
I'm
if we're
gonna
quiet
throw
long
this-
enough, you might just.
Maybe so, Mr. Brennan, I don't know.
Well, and I think for the beautification, we have met probably with every garden club that's out there. They really want to try to be engaged and involved. And I think as we go through this plan, we ought to figure out where they can be involved. One of the groups has $20,000 to put towards beautification. So, you know, maybe a gateway maintenance program is something they could be involved with as well. As we move forward in some of our parks and enhance our gateways, as we talked about, maybe that's a play, but I do think we ought to try to see how we leverage that.
And Mayor, I think that's a great idea. We've actually embarked on many different things under beautification that we have on this list. And currently, we're trying to redo many of the beds throughout Columbia to include East Gervais, Rosewood, some of the beds that haven't had some beautification efforts in quite a while. But before I get started, I also want to point out that we've got some diseases in Columbia that we need to learn how to get rid of. And one of them is and I'm
Called
not
the
saying the city
Bradford
got
pear tree.
the Bradford pears. I'm not saying the city got overzealous, but I think all places did. But you know, the knockout roses were one of the greatest things in the world. They were supposed to be disease tolerant. They now have a virus, so all the knockout roses in 5 Points are probably coming out. There is no known cure for the virus that's in the knockout roses, and as it continues to make its rounds, we've also got some dieback in a lot of our Indian hawthorn around town that we're having to use. So we're going to look at using. I know I don't want to mention 5 Points, but we're working with 5 Points on using, maybe if we do something on a beautification project, is using a lot of different plants in 5 Points so we don't get tied to any one thing. So we're going to reach out to a lot of people and need a lot of information on that. So
I think in some of the high traffic areas where tendency for trash to get overflow or things float around, those, especially in the medians, that grass, whatever it's called, that they're using in a lot of cities now, is keeping that trash out, and it's low maintenance. You don't have to put mulch because the grass grows over and it's prickly, so people won't walk through it. So it's a win-win all the way around.
More grass and less mulch makes
Yeah.
less work for us. I know that. So some of the things we've been working on is the Welcome to Columbia sign. The specifications have been written. We've actually got them purchasing right now. They're getting ready to release those. They're going to be, it's kind of an RFP process. So we're going to let some people bring some designs back to us. We will definitely share them with you when we get them. One of the things we put in there is we want a first take on them, then we want some comment period, then we want a second take on them. So we kind of get what Columbia needs. We're still looking at 3 types of signs. I'll hit a lot of these so I get this is, we're looking for that big monumental sign maybe Columbia can put. Then we're looking at some secondary signs for some of the lower impact areas. And then we're looking at the last sign, and that will be the sign that's replacing the ones that the mayor's calling me about every time he drives around right now.
We haven't been a capital place to be in a long time.
Understood. So the one on Jarvis Clapett Boulevard is hung out over the river, so we're working on that one today. But there's a lot of signs out there from years ago. There's one in Harbison I see. I think it's been removed recently too. So we're removing them, but hopefully we'll have something that brands Columbia as this is Columbia, and the signage says this is Columbia.
Well, we, when you get that process in, what do you think the time frame is to get some proposals? What did y'all do, a 30-day, 60-day, do you know?
I don't think we've worked out that detail with purchasing yet. I'll be meeting with them. We talked a little bit earlier.
Since we're gonna tweak it, can we do it where it's a 30-day period? Because that way, they're giving us an idea, instead of them drawing and spending so much time developing something that we may wanna tweak. I'm looking for something personally more simple, big block white letters that say Columbia with welcome to, across the top or something like that could be done. I noticed in a lot of the airports, they're doing that, with the call sign, easy maintained, pressure washer and you're done, which is what we need to think about. The stone monuments of Rock Hill and other stuff, that's not Columbia.
Yeah, that was we've talked about this,
We've
I
talked about
think,
it,
going
so-
with a more modern feel that would stay timeless and be consistent with branding, no matter what council or the city looks like is gonna be important. And
Columbia with a big heart on the top of it.
oh gosh. And that's why I also recommend that there may be an opportunity, once we do narrow it down, to engage the public and make it something to share a little bit why we're doing what we're doing, and just an idea.
And I think we left it pretty wide open on the specifications, is we wanted something that's simple to maintain, simple to do, but we also thought a little bit about where we are as a city and some of the things we're trying to do. One of them was lighting up the sign. We want to be able to light the sign, but we wanted to be able maybe to change the colors of the lights of the sign for different times during the year, like we do City Hall and some other people are doing. So we have some interesting things in there. We'll get with purchasing on that and make sure we move that forward. I think 30 days don't sound, something that we can get something back.
I love the idea, and, different colors are for different months and all that. But our sign in the capital city with a major flag university can't have purple and orange in it. I'm just
Understood,
gonna
sir.
be honest right now.
Depends
It
on who
can't
runs a
happen.
cell phone. That's all I got to say.
Can't happen.
So, with that, I'll move to some of our.
live in the city, so
I'll move to some of our internal projects that we're working on. One of them was just completed. Chief Holbrook, I'm sorry it took so long, but that was the Assembly Street fence rebuild. That was the city didn't put a cheap wrought iron fence in when they put that in, so the fence was actually built off-site, brought in, and actually had to be re-welded. But we also wanted to make sure that the fence had some design issues in it for growth. So as those trees grow, the way the fence was designed, we'll be able to take a Sawzall on and actually saw the pieces of the fence off, so the trees will have time to expand through that, but nobody else will be able to hopefully walk across the medians.
Activity?
So, and phase 2 of that is actually North Main. I know there's several sections of the fence out there, so around Columbia College is knocked out. So we got a bid on that last week. So we'll be putting that in. The Midlands Business Leadership Group, after 3 years or so, is actually starting to move forward. So that is going to begin with the 302 corridor. What we are is we've got some good designs from a contractor. We're actually moving those designs to a construction designer for 302 and for Forest Drive. Once we get the construction designs done that we may have to pay for out of MBLG funding, then we will move it through our purchasing departments to actually have them individually purchased. So I would, pretty sure they have the funds for 302. We're not sure what the bids are gonna come back in right now. But as we move that project forward, we hope to do a Forest Drive also this year and get both those projects up and running. City Hall, Laurel Street, I think some people have seen the concrete work we've been doing around Laurel Street. We've got about $40,000 worth of planters to put around these buildings. So we just need to finish our concrete work. We've cut the trees down, the Bradford pears on Laurel Street. We're replacing them, I believe, with plum trees. Those flowers and everything will be changed out with annuals several times during the year and hopefully provide some vibrant color and actually tie those two groups together. The other one we're working on is we're working with the Code Enforcement Department, the Police Department. We talked about it this morning, and that is the technology piece maybe the mayor talked about. It's called City Detect, and I'm not going to talk a lot about City Detect because I think it's a code enforcement deal. But my understanding is they will put cameras on the side of our trucks. So if it's an automated truck, it'll have one camera on it. It'll take pictures of each parcel that's in Columbia that we have it on. They will get the pilot program we're working on right now. They'll get a weekly report and it'll show blight, overgrowth, missing mailboxes, shingle issue, tarps on houses, and hopefully it'll help code enforcement react to these a little bit quicker with maybe some shortage of manpower. And I think if we do the pilot program, and turns out, I think David Hatcher mentioned this morning that we might get a report daily on this as our trucks go through. So we've got a little bit of work to do. We got a little Wi-Fi issue down at Public Works we got to take care of. And I believe they think the project may roll up in April sometime for the demo. The site renovations, I mentioned we're working on East Gervais. We're working on Garners Ferry Road. Several years ago, Dominion took a bunch of stuff out of Garners Ferry Road going up the hill past Rosewood Drive on the left. We're working at putting junipers back in there. We still have some stumps to work on. Our mowing contract.
Wait, can you remind me, what are we doing at East Gervais?
East Gervais is the medians. They have
Okay.
a lot of plants in them that have died, and we're just trying to redo those. So that's on our radar right now. I think we're working on Rosewood Drive with our crews right now.
They frequently get visited by drunk drivers.
Several things do. Our mowing contract, the bid just opened last Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. We're waiting on the bids for that. Of course, we've had beautiful weather. I came in the interstate this morning and I noticed the dandelions are starting to grow and the weeds are starting to grow. So we're going to have to kick into mowing gear sooner than later. We are planning on using a contractor to mow some of our larger areas. What that will do is it'll actually put our crews back in, hopefully the heart of town, with the growth that we've had over the many years without adding people, that we'll get to be spending more times in the beds we have now. We know North Main's getting ready to come online also, so that'll give our crews time to do some of that.
So we're just now getting those contractors on board from last year's approval for budgeting those.
That's correct.
Was that planned?
I don't know if anything's planned, but the money was, by the time the money got put in the budget, we actually did the requisitions and got the bid on the street. They came back in. I think we're planning on turning them back around by April to council. So we usually don't start mowing till April. So, we're gonna start mowing a little bit early this year because of the weather.
They don't utilize them in the fall and the winter.
Right, but that's 8 months after the budget was in place that now when did the budget,
Yeah.
I can't remember when the money hit. October.
City council made second approval approved the amendment
And it was too cold to mow.
And these contracts will only go through November. I think they're November, 1st of November, and then they will subsequently quit again until we start next spring. But these dates are movable as we see the climate's changing, so we'll put mowers on the street a little bit
weeds
quicker.
still grow in the median in the winter, Robert?
I understand.
Remember that, all right?
So the other thing we've worked on is a partnership with DOT, and that was the medians on Gervais Street. the medians on Hugie Street, what we've done is remove the debris. We did paint the ones on Gervais Street. We are waiting on, hopefully DOT to provide some funding for that in the future. If not, then we're gonna have to decide a different way to go.
We've asked for money, and I talked to the speaker and some other folks about the fact, that we need some more of that funding. I would like us, Mr. Brennan has reached out and gotten some names of some of the DOT contractors. We'd like to have a conversation and look as we budget, at working either with their existing contract, so maybe we could leverage some money with them, or with the prison, that we've got to have some cleanup crews in the gateways. The trash is just getting worse and worse. We're gonna put an initiative together, hopefully here soon, for cleanup in April, so we can try to do a big cleanup across the city and all our neighborhoods, but the gateways we gotta have consistent. There's just too many entrances into this city, and they're all, unfortunately, there's trash everywhere.
I think every district has a certain number of roads that need to be consistently cleared of litter, and I'm sure you'd recognize all the contractors that DOT sent me for that. So whether we pull it from accommodations tax, I completely support bumping that to whatever level
Figure
needs
out
to
how we
happen.
can leverage that and what the best way to leverage.
No overlap, kind of get on the DOT's per mile
We have our
routine.
collaboration meeting next week with DOT. We'll actually bring this up, see where they are.
Great.
Okay.
We reach out to Brian Sterling as well, just to see where they're gonna be back with the labor. 'Cause that's who normally has been able to help us in the gateways. But we're gonna have to create the initiative internally to get our neighborhoods connected with each other and spend some more time cleaning up in the neighborhoods.
Hearing from Mr. Sterling, I don't think that they're gonna have the capacity to grow that program, so us making up that difference is important.
And lastly, we just got a call this morning. We've been trying to meeting with Matt Kennel and the Main Street Association this week sometime to talk about some beautification efforts on Main Street itself. There's some desires to have a little dog park somewhere. I know where the Hope sign is. There's some barren land right there. We're hoping to do something there. We may do some fake grass. We may do something. We're not sure what we're gonna do yet.
In front of the Marriott is a huge patch that's been empty forever. That is the place where you put the fake grass
That's
for the
what we're
doggies to
meeting.
go.
That's what we're meeting about Friday. We actually believe that property is
can hose
private
it.
property.
Yeah, you can hose it down.
You can
The
hose
grass
it.
won't live anyway, because all the dogs pee right there.
So we're thinking of making a spot there, a spot off across the street. So we're meeting Friday with Matt about that. So with
Tell
that,
Matt that we appreciate their constant donation and new flowers, and would love to help them spend some of their money.
gotcha.
Robert, the only other thing I would add maybe to your list, which the mayor touched on briefly in April, the citywide beautification effort to bring in neighborhoods and college students and whomever wants to participate. And I know community development, I think, is working with you all to help the mayor organize that.
So we actually had a meeting about that this morning. We've actually begun the process. We're reaching out to some of the container companies around town. They're not really wanting to participate, which understood, but we also have 6 roll-off containers. I think what we've got set right now,
Who doesn't want to participate?
that would be capital, that'd be waste management.
Okay, well, let's call them up.
We did. So,
Last time I checked, don't we franchise out, or we allow commercial to be picked up with that? Maybe we need to get back in the commercial business.
I think we ought to get in the
I don't
franchise
know.
business, charge franchise fee.
Maybe.
But that's a revenue generator. But I think what we are looking at is, we talked this morning, we had a meeting with Justin PR, is doing something with our 6 containers, locating our six
We need more than
containers in different areas.
I'll call
and leaving
those
them for a
guys.
week. But also probably rolling out City Detect at the
Did you
same time.
talk to CIU?
No, I have not.
All right, so CIU is planning another big cleanup, and I think we ought to try to do it with them. Last year, they had 2,100 volunteers show up.
Okay.
And so I think if we can use their basis to engage the rest of the schools and our community, I think we can get a ton. And I'll work on the capital waste and others.
USC has work days too.
Yep, USC. I think we try to get everybody engaged and just have a massive cleanup.
We'll work on it.
Start for fresh.
Okay.
Perfect timing.
We'll do that. So with that, that's our beautification. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. There are a few items regarding the canal reconstruction that we will touch on in executive session, but the main points Clint is going to cover now publicly because it's good information for the public to know our progress.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So we'll touch on the three-legged stool that we talk about in terms of bolstering our water supply and the reliability of that. The first is the embankment breach repair. As you well know, the initial scope of work was $42 million. The beauty of that is we agreed to a scope of work with FEMA regardless of a dollar amount. So if those bids come in above $50 million, and we know based on the time that they're probably going to be north of that, that funding should be there. I'll call your attention to the third bullet item, the FERC licensing amendment. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is asking that, or requiring that we not renew our license, but that our license be amended based on these repairs that we're making. So
I don't understand.
I'm struggling to understand myself, sir, but that is,
It makes zero sense.
we have been quiet for so long and
Right.
non-operating for so long. They want to take a fresh look at the license and maybe require some amendment to that license. So we're working on that. Yes, sir. And we'll speak about that one a little more. But that adds a time component. Also, we'll talk about that fourth bullet item a little more later, but some additional work that FERC may be requiring that FEMA has not agreed to fund. So we've got to work through that, and we'll talk about that.
It's frustrating. Is that what I'm
Is
speak
there,
for you,
is there
Mayor?
a way for us to pull some of our Washington connections to advance the ball here? Because for me, the anticipated time frame, I just think we've spent an exorbitant amount of time with every regulatory agency, and it is a massive eyesore problem. It's hindering development. That we can move this up. We know the money's appropriated, so it's not a money issue at this point.
Yes,
So
sir.
we
and I-
need to talk about how we can utilize our resources.
Yes, sir, and I think we'll have some of those discussions a little bit later this afternoon, but I echo your frustration, I'll just say that.
I mean, just the fact that the hydro plant's not operating, that's a
Every
huge
day.
amount of revenue.
Every
It's
day.
not coming back to us that we could be using to further other projects.
Yes, sir.
What's the percentage? How much more is left of design? Is that what I'm reading here? We are 30% designed?
So, yes, sir, and until we received FERC's comments on the 30% design documents and FEMA reached a certain level of maturity with their environmental assessment, they would not approve for us to move beyond 30% design. They have since approved that, so we're able to move to 60% design, but that design, the 30% design has been complete for quite some time.
So the journey to go and find the funding, no design work was going on then?
Preliminary work to justify the funding. Yes, sir, that's correct. And if we proceed too far, we proceed at our own risk, and the design may not be reimbursable. And but with the layers of reviews that have to happen, we think the design is not it's not the holdup. So
Clint, do you have a estimated time of when the embankment repair will be done, finished? Do you have a?
yes, sir. We think early 2026 we're looking at about a 24-month time frame. I'll move on to the head gate replacement unless there are other
Yeah,
questions.
that was my next question. When's the head gate gonna be replaced?
Yes,
Sooner than
sir.
that, hopefully, right?
Well, we're going to start fourth quarter of 2023. That one is not as long a time frame for construction. $8 million awarded in the mitigation grant. Our estimate now is about a little over $10 million. We plan to put the extra $2.2 million in the water and sewer CIP request to be able to proceed with that. That one is also part of the FERC licensing amendment requirement, so that is pending.
Is that 2023 is a start? When's the estimated finish date?
So that one's 12 to 18 months of construction.
So 2024.
Yes, sir. Possibly bleeding over into 2025.
Yeah, fourth quarter of 2023.
Then the last leg of the stool is the resilient water supply. That one is moving along a little more favorably. We've completed design of that. Funding is in place through a combination of previously funded capital improvement program funds and the FEMA BRIC grant. We are working out a memorandum of agreement with 3 tribal agencies and SHPO to take care of the adverse impacts of us cladding the river side of the embankment with riprap and doing a few things, and also having the structure out in the river. So we're working through that right now, hoping to, had several discussions with John Sylvester and hoping to put a pin in that here shortly and be able to move forward. That anticipated timeline for bidding, again, fourth quarter, sooner the better. That one is critical for us.
Do we have consultants doing that
Yes, sir.
communication?
Yes, sir. They're assisting us, yes, sir.
So fourth quarter of 23 start,
Start bidding, yes, sir.
and how long is the construction?
So that one is 24 months.
26?
Yes, sir. Well, hopefully fourth quarter of 2025. So what questions do y'all have? And we'll talk again about some of the strategies for accelerating in a bit.
One of the projects that's not in this list because it's not canal, but the joining up of the Lake Murray plant with the downtown plant. I have seen some documents that y'all are beginning to move in that direction.
Yes, sir. There are a few projects that we're including in our water CIP request for this year to bolster some interconnections.
Right.
To be able to share water. So if we had a reduction in capacity from canal, we'd have a little more water. These are pretty small projects. We are doing we're hoping to renew our master plan for our water distribution system to look at any other low-hanging fruit to interconnect the two systems. So,
Does that hurt you in the long run when you've connected? I thought the whole purpose of having the two separate and then adding the new resilience was to keep us, have safety nets along the manner. Is the interconnection not affect that in a negative way?
So Mayor, the interconnection I think that you might be speaking of, we had conceptualized a 60-inch water line coming all the way down, and that is prohibitively expensive right now. And will be in the future. So we're talking about much smaller interconnections that could supplement some zones, but we wouldn't be in a position to fully supply from Lake Murray. The alternate water, the resilient water supply, that intake is a much more cost-effective solution to be able to guarantee source of supply to the canal treatment plant, regardless of the canal itself. So
The interconnection is using finished water. You're connecting finished water.
yes, sir.
The resilient Columbia is raw water
Raw
coming
water.
out of the
Bringing us
river.
another
Yes, sir.
resource, but they're just trying to keep the redundancy so we protect our water system. We got 145,000 customers, so we need to make sure we can deliver.
We are looking at ways that we can, our system's growing in different areas. We have a lot more room for expansion at our Lake Murray treatment facility. So we're looking for ways to utilize that. We've seen quite a bit of industrial growth, Mark Anthony Brewing, et cetera, pulling off the canal plant. So we're looking at ways to shed some of that canal base load to Lake Murray. And I think there are a lot more cost-effective ways to do that rather than the 60-inch transmission line connecting the two facilities. So those are.
Mike's hard lemonade flavored city water for an extra fee.
Bulk rate.
Based on your presentation this morning, the difference in the water coming out of Lake Murray treatment plant versus the Broad River treatment plant is huge. If we had to pay for that.
A few part per trillion and several tens of millions of dollars difference there, potentially. We're hoping that doesn't come to fruition. And any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Clint. So at this point, those are the major projects, updates, that we're going to discuss publicly. And we wanted to shift to the Resilient Columbia Fund. I know Reverend McDowell probably wanted to weigh in on this item, but, we could.
We just need to move it into the general fund. That's where it came from. And if we do have something in the future with COVID related, I mean, my understanding from the last trips to Washington and so forth, they're gonna be if we ended up in that situation, there'd be different resources. I don't know that holding $214,000 back right now is gonna move the needle.
How would you use it anyhow?
Just put it in the general fund and let the manager decide where it goes.
I mean, how would we use it for COVID?
Yeah, well, I don't know how you'd use it for
Yeah.
COVID, to be honest with you. I mean, all the infrastructure's there. Now we're in a whole different world than we were several weeks ago, but
So you wanna go in executive session? Do I do my thing?
We're ready when you all are. Sure. So are we, before we do that, just so I have clarity, because I know there were a couple other items that were on the table,
I would
that we
move,
potentially could have used the
I
funds
suggest
for.
we just move the 214 into,
Move it back to fund balance.
move it back to the general fund.
We'll send them your way. There's just one in particular that I think is being discussed that would, maybe this could be
That was the
eligible
equity study.
funding.
Starting at 3 o'clock.
That was the 60,000 for, the equity study.
We can,
Yeah, I don't know if I have enough information to make that call right now, because if we're gonna do the 60,000, why not go ahead and do that?
General consensus, everybody's good? The 60,000 towards getting the community feedback on the equity study?
Are you,
That was the request, and I will support you all in that. Yes.
All right.
and the rest go,
And the rest, you just want to wait? I mean, or can we move it into the general fund? It's not going anywhere. I mean,
Well, I think I guess that is my thing. Does it go into the general fund as a separate line item, or does it go into the main
Fund balance.
general?
let's go to fund balance.
I don't have anything in particular. I just know that we get tons of requests. That's more or less what I was thinking.
whatever you all, and we are here to get direction on
you
what
know,
You
y'all
just
okay.
put
like
it
to
in
do.
fund balance.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
All right,
Is that way
moved
we
on
don't
from
have-
there. Mr. Duvall?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we go into executive session for discussion of matters relating to the proposed location, expansion or provision of services, encouraging location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body pursuant to 30-4-70A5, Olympia Fire Station, the Canal Reconstruction, Columbia Riverfront Gateway, William Street Extension, 1601 Assembly, 2221 Divine Street redevelopment, 1401 Main Street upfit, Washington Square, CPT headquarters. Discussion of compensation of an employee pursuant to SC Code 30-4-70A1, compensation and classification, market analysis, citywide compensation recommendations, and fire pay plan. Receipt of legal advice relating to matters covered by attorney-client privilege pursuant to 30-4-70A2 municipal court.
Is there a second?
Dr. Bussell, second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, could you read the roll?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.